The following weekend, Jenny stood me up. After getting back from Middleton, we'd returned to our usual routine. I assumed she'd kicked our Cutty Wren project into the long grass for now. After all, the clues had proved fruitless, and we come back home empty-handed, scratching our heads and still none the wiser as to where the treasure hunt was leading. We'd driven back feeling tired, irritated, frustrated and vaguely guilty. It hadn't brought us closer together as I'd secretly hoped it might. Perhaps it had just lured us there, rather didactically, for a lesson in the brutality of history. She'd vaguely invited me to a ceilidh that Saturday. I hadn't had anything else on, so I'd agreed to accompany her. As the time had drawn nearer, she hadn't called to confirm the details, so I tried to ring her. All through Saturday, there'd be no answer from her landline, and her mobile went straight to answer phone. It wasn't a firm arrangement, so I shrugged and thought no more about it, toying with the idea of going out to the dance myself without her. Just to spite her, eh? I thought sourly. Like she'd care. In the end, I fell asleep in front of some awful TV programme, waking up fully clothed and stiff-necked. I didn't hear from Jenny until Sunday evening. It was still early, but it had been dark for some time when the phone rang. Without any greeting or other preamble, she said, "I went back there." "Really? Where?" "To Middleton. With a spade and a metal detector. Well, not Middleton exactly. A few miles northeast of it. Nearby you'll find me," it said. It took me a while to work it out, but then I remembered the 3 coins I found under my pillow. The salt spilled by the magpie. I looked on the map, and there it was. A lonely little place called 3 Farthing Hill on Salt Heath. There's a Bronze Age long barrow there, surrounded by gorse bushes. "So," I said. The Wren, remember? Got caught in the furs." "Well, it was. Or rather, under it. Something was, anyway. Just took a bit of digging to find it. Something small and very shiny and very valuable." "Great," I said, fighting my sense of grievance that she'd left me out of her endeavour. "So, did you bring the Molly dancers back with you or something?" "Ian, what are you on about?" "Well, sounds like one of their accordion players is warming up." She muttered something else in a voice suddenly shaky, almost tearful. Not like her at all. But then she hadn't seemed her usual self throughout the call. I couldn't make out quite what she was saying now, just the gist, that something had come back with her all right. It was difficult to understand with all the wheezing going on in the background, as if someone was playing the squeeze box, but no notes were coming out. "I wish you bloody well hadn't said that." She still sounded upset, but in a brittle and irritable way. "Sorry," I said, backtracking hopelessly. "It's probably just the line." "No, Ian, it's not the line. I can hear it too." She sounded as if she was trying to keep her voice down to prevent someone there from overhearing. Yet I knew she lived alone, and rarely had visitors apart from her occasional one-night stands, and sometimes me. You're really frightened, aren't you? Look, why don't I come over? For that matter, why didn't you let me come with you when you went back up there?" Conscious of the querulous tone to my voice on this last question, I might have expected a snapping rejoinder. "Maybe because this was something I wanted to do on my own, Ian." She'd raised her voice in irritation at this point, but then lowered it again, as if she'd forgotten herself, but was now renewing her attempt to conceal her presence from the implied listener. Whoever it was had stopped wheezing, perhaps suspending breathing, in order to hear her, because respiration seemed a more likely explanation for the sounds than a faulty accordion, when I thought about it, which I tried not to as much as possible. thought I was on my own when I dug it up," she went on, speaking barely above a whisper, so I struggled to hear it. "But after a while, I felt sure something was watching me. Then I saw it was just a few wrens, nesting among the stones. I could hear them singing. I can hear them now. I think they're going to give me away like they did St. Stephen. Can you hear them?" I listened to the dead air for a moment, straining to hear birdsong. Was that a faint chirring? No, it was just the whirring you sometimes get on the line. "Oh God, Ian," she said, her voice high and tiny. "What if it's homing in on this thing I dug up?" The next sound I heard was the beep of the line disconnecting. I should have gone over there straight away. At first I was too full of resentment at her snubbing me by going to Salt Heath without me, even suspecting that she'd deliberately tried to shut me out of what sounded like a lucrative find, keeping all the glory for herself after I'd helped her with the initial legwork. But I didn't let myself think that this was the reason for my delay. I told myself she didn't want me to go. She'd said this was something she wanted to do on her own, I reminded myself. Well, let her, a small, mean voice added. I soon talked myself round, but by the time I got there, she was gone. Would I have been able to help her if I'd gone immediately? I'm not sure. My hesitation had been enough to avoid encountering whatever had come for her. Perhaps it was my cowardice as much as my spite that had held me back. Whatever the reason, I'll never know exactly what happened to her. The inevitable police investigation followed. It was only later that I found out what they discovered in her lonely flat. No body, not so much as a drop of blood. For a while I wondered if I should tell them about the conversation I had with Caroline Blake, when I asked her if she had any ideas about what might have happened to Professor Underwood. "Underwood, you say? Is that her surname? Well, bless my soul, what a small world we live in. That was the name of the chap in the wig on the pub sign, whose testimony sent those men to the gallows." A little genealogical research confirmed that this was no coincidence at all. But I don't think it will help the police work out why their search of Professor Underwood's flat yielded only a floor dotted with feathers and a mud-spattered gold amulet in the shape of a small, plump bird.